The lie you were taught. You've been told the same thing your entire Christian life. Run from temptation. And yet, you're still trapped. You run, you resist, you pray, you sweat, and 2 days later, sometimes 2 hours later, the same sin pulls you back like gravity. So here's the uncomfortable question no one asks. What if running isn't the solution, but the symptom of a deeper failure? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why most believers lose this battle before temptation even appears. Why willpower always fail. Lust doesn't attack when you're strong. It attacks when you're tired, alone, bored, or wounded. That's why willpower collapses, because willpower is a reaction, and reactions always come too late. The enemy doesn't need to overpower you. He only needs to wait you out, and this is where the church gets it wrong. Joseph is misunderstood. When people preach Joseph, they focus on one scene, the running, the garment, the escape, but that's not where the victory began. Joseph didn't win because he ran because he had already won. And Genesis 39 quietly tells us how. The verse. Everyone skips Genesis 39:9. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Read that slowly. Joseph doesn't mention pleasure. He doesn't mention fear. He doesn't mention consequences. He mentions identity. And that changes everything. Lust is not a desire problem. Here's the truth most sermons avoid. Lust is not primarily sexual. It's spiritual amnesia. In the moment of temptation, you don't forget God exists. You forget who you are to Him. And Joseph didn't forget. Why? Because he made a decision long before the door ever closed. The pre-vow. Joseph had already decided who he belonged to. Not in the bedroom, not in the crisis, not in the heat of desire, but in the quiet place of identity. This is what we call the Joseph principle. A pre-commitment that defines your allegiance before temptation speaks. Why running fails without identity. Running without identity is panic. Running with identity is authority. Most believers run afraid of sin. Joseph ran loyal to God. One flees weakness, the other enforces covenant. That difference is everything. Lust attacks your covenant. Notice something dangerous. Joseph says, "How can I sin against God?" Not Potiphar, not society, not himself. Lust wasn't a pleasure offer. It was a covenant violation. And once you see sin this way, it loses its disguise. Why the enemy pushes urgency, temptation always says, now, just once. No one will know. Urgency is the enemy's greatest weapon. Why? Because urgency silences identity. The Joseph principle removes urgency by settling identity in advance. Most Christians are undecided. Here's the hard truth. Many believers secretly think, I'll decide when it happens. Joseph never did that. Undecided people fall. Decided people flee. This is not about strength. It's about clarity. The spiritual firewall. A firewall doesn't fight viruses. It blocks access. Joseph didn't debate lust. He denied it entry. That's the power of pre-decision. Why shame makes it worse. Shame tells you, you're weak. You'll fail again. This is who you are. Identity says, I belong to God. This is not me. I don't betray covenant. Shame fuels cycles. Identity breaks them. Lust feeds on secrecy. Potiphar's wife removed witnesses. No eyes, no accountability, no risk. But Joseph remembered the one witness that never leaves. That awareness killed the moment. God was the third person in the room. Joseph wasn't alone, and neither are you. Lust thrives when God feels distant. It dies when God feels present. Presence flows from relationship, not fear. The moment was decided years earlier. Joseph's decision wasn't emotional, it was historical. Years of faithfulness built one immovable response. That's why he didn't negotiate. Why deliverance prayers fail. You can't cast out what you keep agreeing with. Deliverance doesn't replace identity. Identity prevents possession. The Joseph principle closes the door. Deliverance tries to clean up afterward. Lust is a loyalty test. Every temptation asks one question: who do you belong to? Joseph answered before the question finished forming. This is why falls feel sudden. Falls feel sudden because the compromise happened earlier, in thoughts, in habits, in entertainment, in secret allowances. Joseph allowed none of it. Why you feel double-minded? Part of you wants God, part of you wants relief. The Joseph principle forces alignment. One master, one allegiance, one identity. You don't fight lust, you starve it. Lust feeds on fantasy. Joseph starved imagination by clarity. No fantasy survives identity. Running is the last step, not the first. Joseph ran after the decision, not before. That's why running worked. This is spiritual warfare. This isn't about morality, it's about territory. The enemy wants access. Identity denies permission. Why this message is rarely preached. Identity demands responsibility. It removes excuses, it removes victim language, it removes emotional loopholes, and that scares people. How to form your Joseph vow. Not a vow of fear, not a vow of rules, a vow of belonging. One sentence, one allegiance, one line you don't cross. The power of naming your identity. Unspoken identity is unstable. Spoken identity becomes law. Joseph knew his place. Do you? Lust loses its voice. Once identity speaks, temptation whispers. It no longer commands, it suggests, and suggestions are easy to refuse. This is why failure feels empty. Sin promises relief, delivers emptiness, because you betrayed identity, not just rules. Joseph went to prison, free chains on the body, freedom in the soul. Lust enslaves, integrity liberates. God trusts those who trust him. Joseph lost position, but gained destiny. Integrity delays promotion, but guarantees it. Why this principle works immediately? Because it changes perception. You don't see temptation as pleasure, you see it as betrayal, and betrayal is never attractive. This is not legalism. Rules restrain behavior. Identity transforms desire. Joseph didn't obey rules, he protected relationship. The enemy fears decided believers. Undecided believers are negotiable. Decided believers are unreachable. Why this kills lust in the moment? Because the moment never gains authority. It's rejected instantly. No debate, no fantasy, no delay. The moment you stop bargaining, bargaining invites sin. Joseph didn't bargain. He fled covenant violation. This is why some people walk free. Same temptations, different identity. How to rebuild after failure. You don't promise God better behavior. You reaffirm belonging. Identity restores faster than discipline. God is not surprised by your struggle, but he won't override your allegiance. He waits for your decision. This principle scares demons because demons need agreement. Identity refuses consent. Your future depends on this. Destiny flows through integrity. Joseph's crown passed through temptation. This is not about sex, it's about worship. Every temptation asks, who do you serve? The final deception. The enemy says, you'll stop later. Joseph said, I belong now. The call to decision, not tomorrow, not after failure, not after healing. Now, the vow of identity. Before this video ends, define it. One sentence, one allegiance, one unbreakable line. The door you don't know you're reopening. Before we close this teaching, there is something you must understand. Most believers don't fall back into lust because they forgot what they learned. They fall because they stopped guarding what they decided. The Joseph principle is not a one-time revelation. It is a maintained position. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You can hear this entire message, agree with every word, even feel convicted, and still reopen the door tomorrow without realizing it. Why? Because identity is not sustained by emotion. It is fortified by daily reinforcement. This is the open secret no one tells you. Joseph didn't survive temptation because of one heroic moment. He survived because of patterns, daily patterns, quiet patterns, unseen patterns. The enemy doesn't usually come back with a louder temptation. He comes back with a slightly weaker identity, a skipped moment of prayer, a compromised thought you didn't confront, entertainment that slowly rewires what you tolerate, a private habit you tell yourself is harmless. And little by little, the covenant line becomes blurry, not erased, just softer. And once identity softens, lust doesn't need to break in, it gets invited. That's why in the next teaching, we are going to expose the 3 daily habits that fortify the Joseph principle. Habits so simple, they're often dismissed, yet so powerful that missing even one begins to weaken your spiritual firewall. These habits don't fight temptation, they starve it. They don't suppress desire, they retrain allegiance. And when these habits are in place, temptation doesn't feel intense, it feels foreign. If you've ever wondered why freedom feels temporary, why victory fades after a few weeks, why resolve weakens even when your intentions are sincere, it's because identity must be fed, not assumed. And in the next video, you'll see exactly how Joseph's inner life made his outer resistance inevitable. Do not miss it, because once you understand these habits, you'll realize something shocking. Most believers aren't losing because they're weak. They're losing because they're undisciplined in identity. Final word, walk in who you already are. Let's bring this home. Running alone never saved anyone. People run every day. People flee temptation every week. People promise God every night. And yet the cycle continues. Why? Because running moves the body, but identity moves the soul. Joseph didn't ask, "How strong am I right now?" He asked, "Who do I belong to?" And that question ended the conversation. Lust speaks loudly only when identity is silent. But when identity speaks, temptation loses authority. This is not about becoming someone new. This is about remembering who you already are. You are not a slave to desire. You are not defined by past failure. You are not powerless in the moment. You are a covenant bearer. And covenant bearers don't negotiate with betrayal. Before this video ends, I want you to do one thing, not later, not someday, not after another failure. Now, define your vow of identity. One sentence, one allegiance, one line you will not cross, no matter the cost. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Put it in the comments if you're bold enough. Not for validation, not for performance, but because identity spoken becomes identity enforced. And finally, hear this clearly. God is not waiting for you to prove your strength. He is waiting for you to choose your allegiance. Joseph chose before the door closed, before the pressure rose, before the moment demanded an answer. And because he chose early, he stood firm later. Walk in the identity God has already given you. Guard it, feed it, reinforce it daily, and I'll see you in the next teaching.